Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. We'd like to begin. So for those that are at a community board meeting for the first time, welcome. And I'm going to just briefly explain the process this evening. It's the same as most of our community board meetings. So this evening we are discussing the plan for downtown Far Rockaway. And we're going to have, even though many of you may have seen presentations in the past year, more than year, that this has been in conversation, it does sometimes change. We wanted everyone to be refreshed in where we are today with the plan. So EDC will be presenting a high-level overview of where the plan is today, that they're clear. Once they complete their presentations, there will be questions from the community board members. After that period of questions from the community board members, then we will go to the public participation portion, which is required. We always have public speaking anyway, but this is public participation under the ULIP process, which is mandated by the charter. And everyone has signed in, and I think we have about 4 sheets, which means we have about 40 people to speak. And when you signed in, it did indicate that it is 1 minute of speaking time. Then the community board members will have a discussion, and out of that discussion, we expect to have someone make a motion, and the board will discuss that motion and then vote on that motion. So that will be our process this evening. So I'm going to turn the floor. I'm going to ask everyone to please be quiet during presentations and discussions so you can hear everything. And I'm going to turn the floor over to EDC so they can begin their presentation.
Thanks, Dolores. So good evening, everyone. My name is Eleni Bornaris. I'm the Community and Government Relations Liaison for the Economic Development Corporation. Many of you have seen me here in Far Rockaway over the last 2 years. And this is Rebecca Gafford. So she is working with our development team and is the project manager for our Far Rockaway proposal. So we're kind of a team here coming out to the community for all of these meetings. So tonight, I'm going to walk through where we are in the Far Rockaway proposal. We're going to walk through what the Laney's actions are and hear from the community and hopefully some testimony from the public. And really, what I want to call attention to is the fact that, you know, this is a plan that, it's a proposal that we've heard a lot from the community on. They've been looking for a change for the Thriftway Shopping Center, the downtown area, when we talk about, you know, wanting sort of a mix of incomes in this area and really bringing back that commercial, vibrant core for what once was and still is today and could be today, the village of Far Rockaway, right? So bringing in that commercial, vibrant core to this district. So, you know, back in the day, historically, there were, this was the commercial and civic hub. You know, there were jobs, there was entertainment, there were places for people to walk around and have this vibrant street life and a diversity of cultural offerings for folks. Who in the room remembers those days when they were sort of shopping along that commercial district, maybe as children? Yeah, I see a few hands here. So right now, you know, this area is not living up to its potential. It's underperforming. It's not serving the residents of Far Rockaway and of the peninsula the way it could. You know, it could be a place where we could once again go down to the butcher to get our fish from the seafood market, to go to the hair salon and get our nails done, and go shopping at some really good retailers that people want to go to, as well as going to get our groceries. And we want to bring that back. But the market has changed, retail has changed, office jobs have changed, but we need to bring those jobs back to this peninsula. So today we're going to talk about, how Councilmember Richards went to the mayor and said, we need to reinvest. There have been decades of disinvestment in this area, and we need to change the tide on that. So today I'm encouraging the community board to vote yes on turning the page of decades of disinvestment in this area, and voting yes on supporting this and bringing back this commercial, vibrant, historically a great place for the residents of Far Rockaway and for the residents of the Rockaway Peninsula. So we're going to go over the project background and community engagement, what we've heard from the community board to date, and respond to some of the things that we've heard. What we can respond to today. It's an ongoing conversation. Today is not, with this vote, it's not the end of this process. This is a long process. As we go through ULERP, there are many opportunities for the community to weigh in on this process, but this is the first step in the vote, and then, we will continue this. We want to open the door for an ongoing conversation. So then we'll go through the roadmap for action, our land use actions, environmental review, the timeline, and then what this means in terms of job creation in this area. So how did this start? So back in 2014, Councilmember Richards went to the mayor and said, this area hasn't been invested in a very long time. I really want you to take a look at it. So we put together a working group in coordination with the city in 2015. We've had about 9 meetings to date with the working group. And that working group came up with several recommendations, which I believe members of the community board have in front of them. So this is the letter of recommendation from the working group that was sent to the mayor in early February of 2016. The mayor responded with an allocation of $91 million to invest in Far Rockaway. That's an unprecedented investment in this community. It's something that hasn't been seen in many, many years. So we want to take advantage of that. We want the community to take advantage of that. So after several meetings of the working group, we had many public meetings, and we'll go over that. And in August, the city responded with how should we use this $91 million allocation in order to unlock the potential in Far Rockaway. So they responded with this comprehensive plan, which is the roadmap for action. And all of this is available online. So then, from that, we really wanted to show the community some action very quickly. So we invested in the storefronts. We've seen 18 storefronts in Far Rockaway having their facades improved, which has made a real difference in the way we feel, I think, as you walk down Mott Avenue in Central. They issued an RFP, which is the Beach 21st Street RFP, and we'll talk about that in greater detail, to start to show some development potential and show that there's an interest in the market for growth in this community and for investment in the commercial corridor. So then we certified it to ULERP on January 30th of 2017, and that's why we're here today, to hopefully open the door on this opportunity and say, yes, Far Rockaway wants to see investment. Far Rockaway wants to see the growth of their commercial corridor. So, as I was saying, we have had 9 working group meetings to date. We've had 4 public meetings, which includes the scoping hearing, which I see many familiar faces, so I know many of you were there, and there were over 100 people in attendance at every single one of those meetings. At the community board, we've gone to 5 committee meetings. So that includes the Economic Development Committee, the Ad Hoc Far Rockaway Committee, the Land Use Committee, and now we're here today. And then we've had small group and individual briefings. Throughout this process, we've maintained an open door policy. So anyone that has called for a meeting, any community groups that are interested in hearing more, anyone that we've called and said, hey, you're a community group in this community, we want to present the proposal and hear your thoughts and answer any questions and dispel any rumors that have been going around, because we want to make sure that people are voting with the right information in front of them. So we've tried to be as accessible as possible. So we've met with clergy, the Rockaway Youth Task Force, Bayswater Civic Association, Frank Avenue, QEBC, St. Mary's Star of the Sea, Adabo Health Center, Ocean Bay. I mean, that's just, the list goes on and on. And the reason why we did that is because we didn't want to get to this point and have members of the community have questions that been unanswered. So we've been trying to be as accessible as we possibly could throughout this process. And hopefully, we want to continue that dialogue with members of the community. So what have we heard over the last year? I mean, we've heard a lot. We've heard that there's a vibrant arts and cultural fabric in this community that we want to maintain and build upon. There's a need for parking. We've heard a lot about parking. We've heard a need for jobs, making sure that any sort of development is sort of sensitive to the needs of the community that lives here today, and that that there is support for businesses and an education to career pipeline and all sorts of things. So we're listening. These are not things that we're going to bake in today, but these are things that as we go through this process, we'll continue to talk about, and we'll continue to see where we can implement them. Because today we're just talking about the land use actions. We're talking about the things that will really unlock the potential for everything going forward. So it's the creation of these spaces. Now, what we've heard from the community board, and this is a paraphrase, but there were about, I want to say 12 to 14 conditions, I think, that came out of the land use committee. So we've heard concerns about schools, healthcare, daycare, active open space, height, parking, local hiring, incentives for local businesses, issues about wages and jobs, making sure that the sewer and infrastructure can account for all of this development. Transit, home ownership, permanent affordability, mix of incomes and phasing, and that the community really wants to see a change in Far Rockaway. That they want to make sure that we can bring back that commercial corridor and have the type of development that would sustain it and have the type of retailers and office tenants that the folks would want. And that the community, at the end of the day, wants to be involved in the process. And we're looking forward to that. So we wanted to show progress. So here are some of the near-term projects that we've been talking about. I talked about the DOT site, the Beach 21st Street RFP. So that went out. Responses came in on March 16th. And, we have to say we received a really healthy pipeline of responses. At the information session, we had about 110 developers, consultants, people attend, and we've had over 300 downloads of the RFP. So our process now is we're going to go through that. There's going to be like an answer and question sort of back and forth with the various respondents to really understand what are these proposals. After the shiny pictures, what does it mean for the community? And then we'll continue that dialogue with members of the community and with the community board. The DOT Plaza is something that we're looking at. These are short, mid, and long-term investments. So the DOT Plaza, so you can change as you walk out of the subway station to the A train. Right now you have the municipal parking lot on the right-hand side and the Thriftway Shopping Center right in front of you. It kind of changes your perception as you're walking into Far Rockaway. You're like, oh, okay, now what? So we want to change it and see that people have stores that they can shop in, restaurants that they can sit down in, be able to have that mix of housing there that they can walk into. Beach 20th Streetscape, we want to make sure that as people are walking down the sidewalks and utilizing the streets, that it's paved and it's used in a way that's friendly, that has like a neighborhood Main Street feel, and that's really what we're looking to bring back. So a lot of these are projects that will benefit the existing community. When we talk about sewer infrastructure, DOT streetscape work, the state-of-the-art, newly designed Queens Library that's designed by Snowetta, which is an architectural design firm that could really be a destination that will serve this community going forward. And over here we have some of the storefronts. So if folks haven't seen, there's actually a video of like a before and after of the storefronts, and you can really see this dramatic change right in front of you if you haven't walked down that corridor. So today what we're talking about are the land use actions, as I said, which would unlock the development potential to accomplish the things that were set out in this roadmap for action. So what we're talking about is the mix of affordability, permanently affordable housing for a range of incomes. We're talking about improving transportation infrastructure and transit, making sure that people can access job hubs across the city, making sure that we can maintain that access and even perhaps look at new ways to access different job hubs. Making sure that there are connections to workforce training, that we have a good pipeline and education to have people go from going to school to having that pipeline and accessing, these careers moving forward, so we could see some real upward mobility and building on the community services and cultural assets that we have here. So this is Far Rockaway today, which many of you know. So we've heard that people feel like unsafe walking around, perhaps that the community maybe wants a mix of uses and different types of retail. Over here we've seen that people want us to redevelop these vacant lots that you see all around Far Rockaway as you're walking around. That something needs to be done with the Northway Shopping Center. I mean, that's something that people have been asking for decades. And that there are areas where, particularly around the LIRR station, where it feels secluded if you're walking around, especially like at night, like after 7 o'clock when a lot of the stores have been closed. So looking at that and keeping that in mind, Rebecca's going to walk through some of the land use actions that we're talking about, and then we'll talk about what sort of opportunity we would be creating through this development. Great, thank you, Lenny. So just getting into some of the technical details of, as Lenny said, sort of why we're here today and what you are to consider today. So I know you have in front of you a list of, I think, 6 actions, and I just want to clarify this is the same as that list. We've just lumped a couple together about urban renewal. So let's talk a little bit about what those actions are. So the first, zoning map and zoning text amendments. So these are really aimed, and we'll get into some of the details, these are really aimed to change the mix of uses that are allowed in this area and really unlock development on some of those lots that Eleni mentioned are really underutilized and some are just vacant in the downtown area. Establishing a special district, and we'll get into some of those details as well, to really make sure that the proposed zoning matches this particular neighborhood and this particular context, to make sure that the new development blends into the existing area. Establishing a mandatory inclusionary housing area, as Eleni mentioned, so that we're ensuring as new development comes, some of that housing is permanently affordable. Disposition of real property, so that's referring to 2 city-owned sites in the downtown that we would dispose of for redevelopment. And I do want to highlight just this last one that I mentioned was sort of lumped in a couple actions that are listed for you. This is really, I think, what is a historic opportunity today, and this is really what sets this planning effort apart from past planning efforts. This is something. This site is a site in downtown Far Rockaway that the community has wanted to see change on for a long time. And really this creation of a new urban renewal area will really help to unlock the potential of this really important Thriftway shopping site where just rezoning would not do it. So getting into a little bit of detail, so these are the areas that correspond to those actions that I just listed. So shown here in the dotted black line, this is the rezoning area, which you can see is really focused on the downtown core. The 2 blue sites are the city-owned disposition sites. So those are underutilized sites that the city could dispose of for redevelopment to really start to see change sooner rather than later. And then the creation of this proposed urban renewal area in this pink outline. So this is a highly targeted, focused area that's really centered on the shopping center and the larger super block around it that really interrupt the development in this area and have been holding back a lot of potential development throughout the downtown. And again, this is a tool that the city uses. This gives the city authority to acquire the properties within this area and dispose of them for redevelopment. So when we plan for this potential future, we really want to take into account, the outer envelope of what could happen. We want to make sure that we're planning for the future and we're taking into account everything that could happen in the future if these actions are put into place. So what we're looking at here is all of the potential development in the rezoning area that could happen over a long build out. We're looking at about 15 years to realize all of this space. And what we're looking at is over 200,000 square feet of commercial space to bring that retail that the community is really looking for. Almost 100,000 square feet of community facility space to really fulfill some of those needs that the community has mentioned. Over 30,000 square feet of public open space to make sure that there is new open space when this development comes. And then looking at the rest of this development, we're looking at on the 2 city-owned sites about 180 residential units. We're looking at on the urban renewal area about 1,700 residential units, and then the balance of the residential use would be on these privately owned sites. So we're assuming here,
just for planning purposes, that private property owners would take advantage of this new zoning. So that's the future that we're planning for. So what are we really talking about changing here? So as many of you know on the community board, there have been rezonings in the Eastern Rockaways in the past. This particular area, however, has not been examined since zoning was created in 1961. So the zoning that's in place here doesn't really reflect what the retail market looks like today and how development happens today, and is really holding back some of the potential of the area. So for example, in some of these areas, this is showing existing zoning. We have these C81 districts, for example, where residential use is not permitted. So this really hampers the potential for mixed-use development. And why do we want mixed-use development? Mixed-use development is what really fuels this retail that we want to see down here. So retailers are looking for a captive audience. They're looking for a lot of shoppers in an area. And this is a way to ensure that we have residential above, we have ground floor retail and community facility space, and we really are creating a vibrant neighborhood. This is also a way to create a neighborhood that feels safer. This is a neighborhood that doesn't shut down completely at the end of the day. We have activity, closer to a 24-hour-a-day kind of environment. So that's what we're really looking at. So what we're looking at creating in the proposed zoning is a mix of R5, R6, and R7-1 residential districts with commercial overlays throughout the majority of the rezoning area. So again, zooming in on what this could look like, what this could do for some of the key sites in downtown Far Rockaway. So this is showing just that urban renewal area here, and the DOT, the Beach 21st Street site down here by the A train. Now, I don't want to dwell on this. This is not, a specific plan for development, but this is sort of really helping us illustrate what we're trying to achieve here. This is sort of the outer envelope, but it helps kind of illustrate some of the principles that we want to bring with this proposed zoning. So, for example, bringing this commercial activity to Mott Avenue, to the existing commercial corridor, making sure that when people come out of the A train, they're greeted by a new gateway, public plaza, where they can go and they can walk into the shops that line it, and there could be programmable space on that plaza. Making sure that new development is concentrated in the center of what is really a large site here in the core of downtown, but making sure that that development then steps down on the edges to meet the surrounding context. And we've heard a lot from the community about height, and I think we wanted to step back for 1 second and just sort of consider the surrounding context. We know that height is a concern of a lot of people in the community. And we just wanted to point out, that there is context surrounding this neighborhood. While there are parts of Far Rockaway that are very low density, there are also scattered throughout the downtown some taller buildings, and right next to those taller buildings, some really underutilized and vacant lots. So I wanted to just point out, looking at the Central Avenue corridor, where there are existing beautiful buildings, 4- and 5-story buildings. Looking at Gateway Boulevard in this corner of the rezoning area, where we have 6- and 7-story buildings, existing residential buildings today. And then just south of this area, we have St. John's Hospital, which is a 15-story building. A couple of other examples, looking at Cornega from Mott Avenue, we have another 6- and 7-story buildings. Redfern Houses, which is just to the north, and looking at Central Avenue to the north, where we have a couple of other taller buildings. So as I mentioned, we're also proposing a special district. So I mentioned those proposed zoning districts before. We're also proposing a special district, and that would allow us to modify that proposed zoning to make sure that we have a little bit more control over what happens, particularly on this large urban renewal area, and then throughout the rest of the downtown core. So we'll go through some of these features quickly. So what we'll do here on the urban renewal area, the special district will ensure that we have new connections through this large site, so that we're reconnecting this block to the rest of the surrounding context. We're creating a physical and visible connection between the A train in the south and the Long Island Railroad Station in the north. We're also creating new east-west connections through the site. We've also heard a lot about open space. So we want to ensure that when development happens on this site, we're building on the DOT Plaza that will be created next to the A train. We're building on the Beach 21st Street Plaza. We're building on the fact that the new library is located just adjacent to this site, and really creating a gateway and a place where programmable open space can be on this large site. And where there are larger residential buildings, there could be private open space for those residents as well. And then when we're talking about building heights as well as ground floor uses, really focusing where these purple lines are on requiring active ground floor uses. So that's retail, community facility space, in places like Mott Avenue and Namio to the north, to make sure that you have, active storefronts. And then again, tailoring the zoning so that we have density concentrated in the center of the site, and then stepping down to 6 stories, say, on Namioke and on Mott, and then 4 stories along Redfern, where the context is a little bit less dense. Parking. As Eleni mentioned, we've heard a lot about parking, and we wanted to provide just a little bit more detail about this. And again, while we're sort of in the conceptual planning stage of this, there are no set development plans. We wanted to show how parking could be accommodated, particularly on this large site, just as an illustration. So what we're showing here is that on the larger development site, there could be parking accommodated partly on one level of underground parking. So this would be underground parking that would have entrances off the streets below the buildings. We're also showing that there could be parking along these new streets that are created, so on-street parking. And then on some other locations throughout the rezoning area, but just showing one example, there could be parking created, accommodated at grade in a parking lot. So overall, we're looking at over 1,200 spaces. What we have today is a municipal parking lot that's about 30% utilized. We have a 400 plus space parking lot on the shopping center site that's only about 10% utilized. And that's because, as you know, you have to be shopping at the shopping center to go there. So we're looking at accommodating this new development with required parking. So I wanted to talk briefly just about phasing. We're talking about a good deal of new development, and this would come over time. This would not come overnight. And we're planning for that. So what we're talking about in the first phase is this city-owned site, for example, at Beach 21st Street, which could be developed first. And as Eleni mentioned, that RFP has been released, and we're currently reviewing the proposals. And then for this large urban renewal area, this would be done in phases. So the point here would be to develop the part closer to Mott Avenue first, to bring a lot of the retail, community facility space online first, and then move north from there. So I'll hand it back off to Eleni.
So, what are we talking about? We've talked a lot about the height, the parking, and all these land use actions, but what does it mean for people that are living in Far Rockaway every single day? This is the view from the A train currently, if you look at it now. And this is sort of what's proposed. So this building over here would be pushed back. This is actually an early sketch. So like Rebecca said, there isn't a project proposed yet, and we wouldn't have that until bids come back for an RFP whenever that is issued. But something like this, the building would be set back. We have some retail on the ground floor, some folks eating at a restaurant, sitting on the sidewalk, and walking around. So it looks very different, and it looks like, looking at this plaza space over here, it's more lively, it's a little bit more vibrant than when you're looking back at what it is today. So here's the view from Mott Avenue looking towards the existing Far Rockaway Library, with the Thriftway Shopping Center on the left. So this is what it is today. And this is what it could be in the future. So we're looking at 6 stories along Mott Avenue, which is the existing height of the Renaissance building across the street. So not any different from what currently exists today. We're looking at, again, some of the sit-down restaurants that we've heard from the community that they want. Could have second floor office spaces to provide good jobs, and plaza spaces for folks to walk around in. And then you're looking at over here, this triangular building is the new library that would come in. This is the view from Redfern and Hasek, so towards the back of the site. And this is, again, what it could be in the future. We don't know what those proposals would look like, but here is an illustrative sketch at full build-out what it could look like. So again, we have some sit-down restaurants and retail spaces, public plaza area. There are folks over here on like a terrace, maybe sitting down and eating on their balconies. It could be anything. But what we're talking about is turning the page on decades of disinvestment in Far Rockaway and opening the door to new opportunity. And really taking a chance, right? And saying, yes, I want to see a change. I want to see new retail. I want things that can create jobs and that can give us access to new jobs. So, we want to work with you on that. So what does this process look like? So right now we issued the draft environmental review in January 30th when we certified into ULURP, and we have to get to the final environmental impact statement. So that overlapping with the ULURP timeline, which is what we're in right now, the Uniform Land Use Review Procedure, and here is where we are in the community board process. So the draft EIS sort of feeds into the ULURP to give us the information that one would need when you're analyzing a reasonable worst case scenario. So at full build out, what does it look like for the sewer infrastructure, for the roads, for the traffic, for all these things? We analyzed all of this, and we account for that as we're looking at that. That doesn't mean that we're going to have, the full build out, but it means that the sewer infrastructure will be able to accommodate that max. So we're building the infrastructure today to serve the needs of the future of Far Rockaway residents. So then after the community board, it goes to the borough president, then the city planning commission, and the city council. This is about a 7-month process. Throughout that process, there are opportunities for residents in Far Rockaway and for the greater community to comment. So today is not the only day that folks get to weigh in. This is the vote from the community board, but from here there are many public hearings where folks can comment. And I encourage the community board. One of the things that the community board has said is that they want to be part of this process and have like an ongoing working group or task force or something to continue to weigh in, and we welcome that. We want to work together to see where we can accommodate that and what that would look like. So what are the near-term investments for the residents of Far Rockaway today? Before any development happens, what's here for Far Rockaway residents that will be coming in the near term? So we're looking at upgrades to the ZoneIN Recreation Center. The new public library should be in construction this year. We're looking at infrastructure work from DEP and DOT. And I've got to tell you, there has been an unprecedented amount of coordination between DEP and DOT on this entire project. And because of this plan, we've heard from DEP that they may be expanding the scope of their work to include even more sewer than they were planning, which is great for the residents of Far Rockaway because we want to see that capacity increase to serve the residents that live here today. And then the storefront improvements, we've seen 18 storefronts having their facades improved, and hopefully that will spur other storefronts to improve their facades and hopefully spur additional investments. So in terms of opportunities, we're talking about activating the shopping center, which has been the way it has been for many, many decades. We're talking about bringing jobs to this area. So over 200,000 square feet, nearly 250,000 square feet of commercial space and nearly 100,000 square feet of community facility space. So those are spaces that will create jobs. We're talking about over 500 jobs being created in this area and many more construction jobs as we look at the full build out over the next 15 years. And we're hoping that many of those construction jobs could start, in the near term as we're looking at the DEP work, the DOT work, the library work, and all of those things. We're looking to have these jobs in this area. New public open space, 36,000 square feet of new public space, and that's not even accounting for private courtyards in the development. So that would be additional space. Catalyzing additional public and private investment and making the area the center of activity for the surrounding community. So not just for Far Rockaway, but for the entire peninsula. This used to be the place where the entire peninsula would come and shop. So let's spend, let's have everyone on the peninsula come back to Far Rockaway and shop here again. So what we're encouraging the community board to do today is vote yes on this proposal, and we understand that there are things that need to be worked out. We understand that there are conditions, but let's continue to have those conversations as we go through this process. Thank you.
Before we go to the community board, thank you, ladies, we appreciate it. Before we go to the community board, Councilman Richards could not be here this evening, but Devaney and Mercedes is here from his office, and they wanted to give us an update on some topics that have been under discussion. Thank you.
Chairwoman and Mr. Gasca. Good evening, everyone, Community Board and members of the public. My name is Mercedes Buchanan, and I'm Councilmember Richard's Chief of Staff. This is my colleague, Devaney Brown, and she's the Economic and Community Development Coordinator for our office. She is the point person for this project in our office. We're going to be very brief because I know a lot of you have signed up to testify. So for those of you that know, that live there or shop with the local merchants, downtown Rockaway has been the same way for over 40 years. The mall, it's stagnant. There's no growth, and we need to have a change. Something has to change. That's older than I am, by the way. So that's how long this has been there before I was even here. So in terms of the plan, and Deb is going to get into you can call her Deb, is going to get into a little bit more details of what we want to see in the plan. Is that we support change. Something has to go here. We can't continue to allow the community for this to be our downtown. It's just unacceptable. So we know that there's a change, and we support revitalizing the area. We are not 100% on board with this plan as of now. So just so people know, we are in support, and Deb is going to go into some of the things that we want to see changed. But overall, we deserve quality retail and quality public spaces for our community. So those are things that I just really want to point out. So we want to make this a better plan for the community as a whole. And just for those that don't know, Councilmember Richards is the chair of the subcommittee on zoning. So this plan has to come before him not only as the local council member, but the chair of the zoning committee. So we are at the table with two different hats, which is really good for us as a community. And just so that you know, we are getting ready to go into negotiations. That has not started yet, and we have been very open, and we will continue to be open to hear people's opinions on what you want to see changed in the plan. Deb and I will be here all night, and we'll have our cards, so you're welcome to come and speak with us. And I will turn it to Deb to talk about some of the things that we want to see in the plan.
So Mercedes did a really good job of, just discussing, our issues and concerns. Just to go in depth a little bit further, we understand the need for new and improved transportation options so that way people can commute to Rockaways and we can get the tourism in Rockaways and have people spend their disposable income in the Rockaways. The need for quality retail. We deserve that. We shouldn't have to go into other communities and spend our money. We should spend the money here in the Rockaways, supporting the businesses that are here. The Storefront Improvement Project, which was a great project to uplift the businesses that are here now, but we need to do more. We need to do more. If we build nothing, we get nothing. I'm going to say that again. If we build nothing, we get nothing. I'm going to speak. We have people that say, leave downtown Far Rockaway as it is. I'm sure you just heard. Leave it as it is. Absolutely not. We will not continue to have people own property and leave it vacant. We will not continue to have eyesores in our community. We have the right to have affordable quality housing. Let me say that again. Affordable quality housing so young people like myself who are just starting out their careers can have affordable place to call home. People who want to move out of NYCHA into affordable projects in the Rockaways. This is what we deserve in our community. New and improved streetscapes. This is what we deserve. So I'm gonna pass the mic. I'm so happy to see our people out tonight. We need to be more involved in the community process. We need to have a say-so. Please come out, hear the plan. We are here to support, but we are gonna advocate and fight on the behalf of the community as is needed, as is our job. So thank you again tonight. We're gonna be here all night. If you need us, we're gonna be over in the corner. Please feel free to introduce yourselves. I wanna encourage you to come out tonight and future to hear these meetings and have your voice be heard.
And just one more comment. So some of the other things that the council member is saying that we do need, and we have already expressed this to the city, we need additional school seats. If you're bringing density, don't come to us without a school. It's needed. We already need it now. We're at max capacity. Jobs. We want jobs to be from the district. We need people. If we're going to build, we need. You have your time to speak. Thank you. Also, green space. We're pushing for green space, and we're pushing for resiliency measures. For those that don't know, this area is the only place on the peninsula that's not in the flood zone. So we want to make sure that this is a hub. So God forbid anything ever happens again, there is a safe place for people to go. And also opportunity for park space, and then like Deb said, mixed income housing. We don't want this to be one level. There's a range of incomes on this peninsula, and everyone deserves a place to live that they can afford. So once again, if you have any questions, we're in the court. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to go to the board now for questions, and I'm going. One of the conditions and conversations we've had a number of times is regarding an elementary school, a local neighborhood zoned elementary school. The Department of Education indicated that in their study that there were sufficient seats, but when they looked at available seats, they went all the way up to 54th Street. I don't know any first grader that's going to travel from 20th Street to 54th Street for an elementary seat to go to school. So we need to know what is the city's position on that, and I'm going to just say, for those that were around for Auburn by the Sea, when we went through that painful process, we had learnings from that certainly, and we required a school, and we were given that commitment. So is the city at this point willing to give the children that move into this new community their own zoned elementary school?
Thank you. So I do just want to acknowledge that, as you mentioned, the EIS analyzed the need for a school, and we looked at elementary, middle, and high schools. And, you know, per the analysis that we had to do and the numbers that we have, we're not showing a need for a school with the new development. That said, we have heard this need. We've heard it from the community. We know that it is a concern today. And these are ongoing conversations that we want to have with the community. So we'll continue to be out talking about that.
I'll just add to that we do have meetings scheduled with DOE and school construction authority. So these are ongoing conversations. It's something that the council member has raised to us as well, and it's something that I know he takes very seriously. So we are taking a good hard look at this.
Thank you. So next I want to talk about retail parking heights, because they're all tied in, heights of residential buildings. So you acknowledge that most of the residential buildings in the surrounding area is 4 to 7 stories. The one building you identified at 15 stories is the hospital, but the residential buildings in the surrounding area is 4 to 7 stories. Currently, the proposal or the plan is for 2 15-story buildings. That density is not in context with the surrounding community. So, of course, the community board, and you know from their committee meetings, we're looking for a lower density. That being said, there has to be that acknowledgement, and I support lower density, lower height. That being said, for retail to come in, they have an expectation. They put a pin in the map, and they give a radius, and they say how many people live within 3 miles of the store where we're going to place. So there's a balance between getting quality retail and the density. But the height, 215 stories, not going to work for me. And in terms of the retail in the Auburn by the Sea, and I will make some reference to that because that has turned out to be a very successful project. 15 years, I guess we worked on that. In that project, we required a national chain supermarket. Now, while you can't commit and force a retailer to come in, certainly there are ways to have conversation with them, showing them the benefit. So I believe that 2 of the retail that the community would be looking for would be a national chain supermarket, and also a mid-box retail, not a big box, but a mid-box. Not that these would be the stores, but something like a TJ Maxx, a Marshall, someplace where you can actually go and do shopping for numerous types of things. Of Kohl's, they have smaller size Kohl's. Target even does miniature stores now. They don't do full-blown stores. That type of thing, mid-box. And you talked about parking, and other members are going to talk about parking, but I want to talk about it in relation to retail. So you talk about the parking underground, and that would be for the residential units. And you're relying on street parking only for the retailers. I don't know that the retailers, even if you're going to give them underground parking, when we talked to Target at one point, when we had hoped they were going to come to the Rockaways, parking was a very big issue for them, and they know how shoppers will come based on where the parking is or is not. So I think you're going to find a challenge with the retailers if you do not have easy, accessible parking for the retailers. And those are my comments. I don't know if you're prepared to talk to any of that. If not, we'll move on to the other members.
Thanks, Dolores. So I'm going to answer what I can from there. And some of those things, it's a little too early to tell. We acknowledge that the community board has resistance to, and we've heard it from the local community too, it's not just the community board, that there's some resistance to the taller buildings to 15 stories, and we understand that. So we are looking to see what else could be accommodated as we go through this process. But in the environmental review, we do need to analyze the reasonable worst case scenario, and we need to make sure that we're presenting a project that is feasible, that is sustainable. So one of the challenges that we have is that we're trying to fit a lot of things in this space that will benefit the community. So we look at community facility space, we look at ground floor retail, the mix of housing to make sure that we're sustaining a vibrant commercial retail sector. But then we're also trying to not have very tall buildings in certain areas where there are lower density buildings nearby. So that's why we've looked at the setbacks. So it's sort of a balance that we need to achieve between having 4 stories along Redfern and the 6 stories along Mott and the 8 stories along Central. And then where do the rest of those units go? So we could look at, having 10 stories along Redfern, but then that wouldn't be contextual to the local community. So I think that this is an ongoing conversation that we're going to need to work on together. But that's sort of what we're struggling with as we look at this is we want to fit a lot of the things that the community has been asking for, but we also want to make sure that the project is financially feasible with a mix of incomes that can support that vibrant commercial sector to bring in the types of retailers that you referenced. Because that's right, when retailers are looking at these things, they do look at sort of a certain radius to see how many people live in that area, how many people are going to shop there, and is it worth the upfront investment to make, whether you buy land or rent it, but then to build out your space to ensure that they're going to have a successful business. And then on the parking, we're really talking about, this is conceptual. So we're talking about the parking that is required, and we are saying that it could be accommodated on the ground, underground, one level of below ground parking. But it doesn't necessarily have to be there. So once we bid it out we send out an RFP and respondents come back with their proposals, we could see, what are the creative ways that they use to make sure that they comply with the parking requirements that we set out through these zoning guidelines. And we'll work with the community on all of these things. Was there a third one? Did I get all of them, Dolores? I think, okay.
That was it. Thank you.
John, Corey.
I need the mic. Yeah, could you even take the mic, please? Can you come over? Because I'm wired in.
I can repeat the question once John says it, if that's helpful.
No, just because I'll feel about it. You mentioned expanding the sewer aspect of it. And the last meeting, you spoke, you were now in the sewer that really 100% happen. How do you increase that sewer?
So we're talking about this two different things. So you're asking about what the work that we just referenced about DEP expanding their sewer infrastructure work, which is the underground sewer system. And then the thing that came up at the community board was whether or not there was capacity at the treatment facility, correct? Right. So we have had conversations with DEP, and Rebecca's going to give you all of the statistics logistics because we do believe that there is capacity, and that is what we analyzed in our environmental review.
Sorry. Okay. So there were two things, as Eleni said, and the first was that, as she mentioned, the capital projects that DEP is doing in downtown Far Rockaway are taking into account, as Eleni mentioned, all of this new development that could potentially come. So the underground, the pipes will be able to handle all of this future development. The second part is the wastewater treatment plant, and that's also analyzed in the DEIS, and we called DEP just to confirm after we talked to the land use committee, and it's currently at about 36% of capacity. 36, yes, currently, exactly. Yeah, and so with this new development, I think we're looking at an increase of about 5%, which is still way below. There's more than enough capacity at the wastewater treatment plant. Yeah.
Do you have any plans for tax abatements for retail establishments in the area, tax abatements because of something like this gets opened down 5 times or doesn't go more economical space to compete with retailers?
Can you just
So
repeat the
you're,
question?
yeah. So you were just asking about tax abatements for retailers to sort of catalyze future investment in this. And I guess the answer is, we're constantly at the city level analyzing our incentive programs and our abatement programs to the extent that we have control over them. Many of them are also controlled by the state. So, we are constantly looking at these things, and we'll work with SBS and our city partners to see what could be applied in the future as it is applicable to this area. Absolutely. So you made a reference to the project labor agreement that the land use committee had stipulated in their conditions, and that's correct. As you acknowledged, in the Beach 21st Street RFP, there will be prevailing wage and living wage, and that applies to all of the city-owned parcels and RFPs that we would issue as part of this proposal. Danny?
Can you use the mic, please? Right behind you.
You had said you invested into 18 different storefronts. Are you going to invest into any more? That's my first question. I have two. And my second question is, we talked, Delaney, about the parking, and I don't know where the location of the underground parking is going to be, but are you going to guarantee the residents of the community and the storefront owners that they will have more parking than they did before?
So on the storefronts, I mean, it's something Councilmember Richards has also brought up. I mean, we've seen it, I think that the reception that we've received from the storefronts that were improved is fantastic thus far. So those are ongoing conversations with SBS and with the entire city team. But, we've been excited with the progress that has been made for those 18 storefronts that look fantastic. On the parking, I think that Dolores had brought this up as well, but there's parking for the residential portion, and then there will be the accessory parking for the shoppers. So for anyone that is going to shop in Far Rockaway, there would be parking for them to go to those stores if they should desire to shop there.
My question was, are you going to guarantee that the availability of parking will be more than they had before? Yes or no?
Sure. So I want to say two things. One is that for the proposed zoning, what we've done with the special district is for commercial use, we've increased the required parking. So it would be for one space per 1,000 square feet, and we're increasing it to one space per 750. And that's in response to all the feedback that we've heard from the community. So that is something the special district will do. So that will provide more parking for those commercial uses than would be provided under that zoning designation. So as Lenny said, there will be parking for commercial uses. The EIS, analyzes parking availability in the downtown area and finds, as we're looking at this, that with that new parking that would be provided, there would be ample space.
So you guarantee
we're guaranteeing that we're creating 1,200 spaces. We're creating more parking than would be required. Yeah.
Okay, I enjoyed your presentation, but I found something very difficult. I mean, we're talking now not about a shopping proposal, which was the original proposal, but housing. The major component is housing. You did not even mention how many proposed people might be moving into these houses, families. And that is about 1,500 initially, up to 3,000. That will have a major impact on the community. Certainly, these people need shopping. The shopping will be primarily for them. Dolores mentioned many of the difficulties, talking about parking. The Rockaway Turnpike has big shopping centers, tremendous amount of parking. Why would anybody think of coming here when there's very little parking? Okay? So, I mean, we have that problem. School, that was already mentioned, okay? But the main thing really is density. What impact, with so many people, so many houses so close together, 2 15-story houses, what impact will that have on the immediate community and the overall Far Rockaway community? When you bring so many apartments, we know in the affordable housing is wonderful. I'm not against it, okay? But in situations where you have, and you use the word projects, we have Redfern, such dense kind of apartment developments, okay, are out of style. Robert Moses built them, okay? Today, what is in style is to really tailor housing to the particular community that it is in. Even in East New York and other places, you're not building projects. You're putting in 1 or 2 small apartments, okay, that fit into the community. That kind of impact is very good. That will also bring shopping. But to put a massive, use the term, project, that impact is something that we have to hear what everyone says.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think that, so this is a proposal for land use action that could unlock development in the area. And what we're really talking about is, this came about because we got a call for, revitalizing the commercial district. If the commercial district could have been revitalized without housing on top, then we would have seen tenants in the Thriftway Shopping Center over the last decade, and we haven't. So, the market has changed. We need to change the way we think about this community and how to attract retailers that the community wants. Because over the last 10 years, as it is right now, that hasn't happened. So something needs to be changed. Otherwise, we're going to continue to see a lot of the same.
The question is it massive housing? Another point I just want to make is the zoning. Now, your zoning includes a large area outside of the immediate shopping and housing area that you're talking about. There's a lot of questions about that. What does that mean in terms of additional housing? What does that mean in terms of additional businesses? What kind of zoning is it? Because in those areas, you already have zoning that includes commercial and zoning that includes housing. Talk about the area towards the ocean, down by the boulevard, the mega area.
Sure. So that's a good question. So other than the shopping center site, which we've obviously focused a lot of attention on, the rest of the rezoning area would be a mix of R5 and R6 zoning districts with commercial overlays. And these zoning districts are really designed in that area in particular to unlock development on, this is not a normal a neighborhood that's on a normal grid. So some of the lots are irregular shapes and very hard to redevelop, which is why you see as you're going down the street, a building that's developed and then an empty or underutilized lot. So these zoning districts with the special district in place on top to really tailor and make sure that you have a street wall that feels in context with the surrounding neighborhood. These are really meant to unlock development on some of those sites that like the shopping center, have been underutilized for a very long time.
Thank you. Yeah, the mic right there, it's great. Thank you.
Okay, a couple of things. We have asked also if you could think about technology incubators, because that's something that will increase, jobs, and also making maybe a building that's a state building or a city building where people from the Rockaways can actually come to work for the state and be right here in the downtown area, and seeing that we're getting a ferry. There may be people who really wouldn't want the people from Manhattan come and take our job, but at least it's an easier commute for us. So I would hope you would think about also, thinking about having state offices and technology incubators and stuff for this community. I wanted to make a statement because we have been in this blighted area for so many years, fighting for money. We finally got some money. EDC has come to us with a project. Now, let's say the whole point of tonight is about the board voting. Let's say we vote no. So we vote no, then this is what happens. The mayor says, you know what, they don't want our money, I'm gonna take the money back. That's it, so we remain blighted. Or secondly, what he does, EDC does not come back to us. They just go ahead and build whatever they want to. And they just don't even come back and engage us. The whole point tonight, people, especially you Far Rockaway people who have watched this community, I am embarrassed to even have anybody come through this community. And you live in this community, I think we need to really seriously think about saying, you know what? We need something there. We do need to vote yes, because at least we will have EDC coming back and talking to us. We could still talk. If we say no, we don't have a say anymore. So I think you gotta be careful for what you ask for and what you say. And I hope that the board members will vote yes. This has been weighing on me for a few days now. We have been going to meetings for 2 years or more. I've gone to so many meetings, I've heard so many things, it's up, it's down, it's whatever. We have questioned. We never want anything in this community. Please, people, let's vote yes, so at least we are at the table talking to the mayor, and that money is in the budget now. Let's grab that money and run with it while we have it.
Sonia?
No, her question. That's why I'm asking for people to use the mic. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm all for redevelopment, I'm all for revitalization and all that. I'm just gonna read, if you can't hear me. Okay. I'm all for redevelopment, revitalization and all that. But I'm just gonna reiterate what I said at the last meeting on a couple of things. If you're going to build this much in this community in 11691, I honestly believe that my passion, first and foremost, my concern is healthcare, okay? We have one hospital here, all right? And as a registered nurse, I know what happens when there's just one hospital and you have a community as large as this. People die, okay? And they're gonna feel like, well, no one cares about our health, so, I'm not gonna take interest, or they'll have that perception, oh, I'll be fine, right? We definitely need a hospital or something close to a hospital. You have urgent care centers. Urgent care centers, a lot of them close at 9 o'clock, right? So how urgent is that urgent care center? How is that gonna help our community, right? Healthcare is first and foremost for me, okay? We have high rates of people with We have high rates of obesity, okay, high cholesterol, hypertension, amongst other things. A lot of cancer patients in this area, okay? And we need to have another facility besides St. John's Hospital. If people came here to this area to actually to live here and know that there's one hospital and they have to wait an entire working day to be seen, they wouldn't want to come here. Honestly, I wouldn't want to come here. Secondly, a school. I can't imagine the data that you pulled. Actually, you came up with numbers stating we don't need another school, an elementary school. The closest one here is 104, and you're talking about building upwards to 3,000 apartments. Of course, those people will come with children. You have to have another school. I mean, I don't know what data you pull for that. Thirdly, you talk about all this affordable apartments, but there's no mention of ownership. You have to have some sort of ownership somewhere, right? Everybody wants a piece of the American dream. Ownership. You should really think about that. You know, I'm all for affordable apartments and all that other great stuff, but ownership is what a lot of people want. Okay? And I mean, I'm all for it, but you know, you guys really need to put that on the table. Thank you.
You don't have to respond on YouTube. Okay. Brian?
Thank you. Good evening. My vote ultimately will be based on what I hear from the local community. I think there's 40-something speakers, but for me, I'm totally confused by the whole proposal. Much of the entire redevelopment project is based on and spoken of and centered around the Thriftway Shopping Center, and that's basically the catalyst that's being used to promote this whole development. That's what I'm hearing at every meeting. While there is an obvious need to upgrade the commercial corridors in Far Rockaway, Mott Avenue, Central Avenue, Beach 20th, 21st Street, very obvious. And I, along with everybody else, all along the peninsula would like to see that. I don't know how was the need for additional residential identified. I know that there's a citywide need for residential. There's always a need for more residential, but we're talking about on a peninsula that just recently went through Sandy. I don't know what thought's been put into evacuation. You know, from a sales point of view, I've got to hand it to both you ladies. I'm sorry I forget your names, but you present this wonderfully. There's going to be terraces overlooking with cafes. I've heard these presentations. I've heard many of these presentations over 20 years. It's just going to be beautiful and fantastic. But there's going to be no schools, no anchor stores identified so far. I would have thought that would be the first thing you would do. Identify anchor stores and bring them on board. Removal of parking, no hospitals. And while I heard the mix of incomes, yet rehousing only affordable was mentioned, and like Sonia mentioned, no ownership component whatsoever. Again, my vote would be based on what I hear from the community, but if there's some serious thought, they're trying to shove a whole bunch of housing down your throat. 15 stories? Oh my God. Thank you.
Oh, Cleo, I just want to respond to Brian really quickly. Sorry. So I think on the housing, there was recently an HPD proposal that received 50,000 applications here in the Rockaway. So there is, I think, a clear need for housing across the peninsula. It's right, but you know, particularly on the peninsula, there were 50,000 applications for that specific project. So I think that's sort of where the need is, and then it goes back to what I was talking about the retail market and how retailers have sort of shifted from, you know, it used to be that people could just drive to a downtown area and retailers would occupy those spaces, but today retailers are looking for more than just that. They want to make sure that there is a captured market. So that's kind of why we're looking at this in the way that we are, to make sure that there is this captured market and that retailers feel like this could be a place where they can grow their business and sustain their business. On the tenants, the anchor tenants, the reason for that is because what we're doing right now is, this is not a project. It is, a project would be once there's been an RFP issued and we're actually talking to developers. At this point, we're too early in the process. These are the land use actions, the rules that would govern how something could be developed here in the future. And we're trying to accommodate a lot of the needs that we've heard from the community, like healthcare, like community space, like places for meetings, like things like that is what we're trying to accommodate. And currently there really aren't any of those spaces available within that sort of 22 block area of Far Rockaway. So, it's more than just the Firthway Shopping Center. It really is accommodating those needs across all of those vacant lots that you see within the entire rezoning area.
I think the sentiment is the same in terms of wanting to see development in the Rockaways and wanting there to be a true reinvestment in the Rockaway Peninsula. But we have to ensure that we as board members, we as community residents are not giving EDC and developers a blank check to develop whatever they want in this community. We have to make sure that we have a say in this process. And one of the things that I'm proposing to EDC and to whomever would be the potential developers is an opportunity to develop green space on top of these proposed buildings and towers, so that adds to park space, that adds to potential opportunity for urban farming, which will create jobs and create an opportunity for green space in the community. So I'm proposing that you guys bring that to whomever developers you're negotiating with as an opportunity to create green space and have people work in the community. I'm also proposing that you guys commit tonight to a real commitment to affordability, right? So according to the Department of Homeless Services, I'm reading some stats from their website. 22,000 children are going to go to sleep homeless tonight. 22,000 children are going to go to sleep homeless tonight. And in total, 59,000 people in general across New York City are going to go to sleep homeless, without a home, and without a place to sleep. I need to know that in this proposal that there's a real commitment to real affordable housing to these families so that they don't have to stay in the shelter system and so that we don't have to come back and know that there's going to be a surprise shelter in our community. We know that they'll have access to real affordable housing. So can you guys commit to that tonight? Or commit to negotiating that with developers? I need you to answer it, and then I have another question. Oh, here are other questions. And then my second question, so I talked about the green space, I talked about real affordable housing. My second question is, what commitment are you guys going to get from a potential developer for prevailing wage? Because I received this handout, or some handout, talking about Arker, which is the developers in 3411 for the senior housing, that they're not paying their workers. What is your commitment to ensure that these workers who are going to be working on this development will, receive adequate compensation, and that a portion of those jobs will be for the community? Thank you.
Thanks, Khalil. So on the green spaces, and on the green roofs, I mean, we welcome all sorts of ideas, and I think it's still very early as we look at these guidelines for what the rules are that would govern sort of the land use actions in this space. But as we look at the RFP, a lot of the feedback that we had already heard from the public meetings is included in the Beach 21st Street RFP in an appendix. Like, these are all of the types of things that we have heard from the community members, and we would welcome including something like that in such a slide with sort of the community feedback that we've heard, because we want developers to be creative and really try to address some of the needs in this community. On affordability, you know, it's really a little too early to tell as we negotiate with the various developers in the future. So right now there isn't an RFP. Right now we are only talking about the land use actions that Rebecca had outlined before, so the urban renewal area and the 2 city-owned parcels. So the process is that once an RFP is issued, we'll receive responses from various developers, and then sort of a negotiation begins, and we try to get more feedback from the community as we go through that process. It's generally at that process, at that time, when we start conversations with HPD and the developers to see, you know, what AMI levels would be, what sort of subsidy would be. So all of those things would come at a later date. It's not what we're voting on today as we look at these land use actions. And then on the, Khalil, what was the third one? Remind me? Prevailing wage. So prevailing wage is absolutely in the RFP. So as I said to John before when he asked the question, there is prevailing wage and living wage in all of our city-owned RFP projects.
Hi. First of all, I just want to thank, I don't know if anyone took the opportunity to thank EDC and to thank Councilman Richards' office. I really think that this project, as far as community outreach and giving the opportunity to be the community to express themselves, is rarely seen in government projects. I want to thank you for all that. In fact, the project even took a visit to my daughter's high school to meet with the high school girls to give them the opportunity to weigh in on this as well. So really, quite remarkable. Thank you very much. For the 20 plus years I've lived here, for the 12 years I've been on the community board, the downtown for Rockaway area has been an area of tremendous concern, consternation, and complaints across the board. I think we have an opportunity now with the city coming, willing to invest a tremendous amount of resources in this area, and we should be thankful for that. One of the concerns that I'm hearing from my colleagues on the board and from the community is the concern that once we vote this, our voice won't be heard. And the only thing that I can say is the degree to which you have invested prior to this vote in reaching out to us and hearing from us, I have to imagine that that's something that's going to continue as we move forward. And so I encourage my fellow board members to really support this project moving forward so we can continue to have that voice and continue to work with EDC, with the City Council, and with the Mayor's office. Thank you.
Felicia.
Thank you. I just want to say, once this proposal came out, a committee was established of the surrounding civics, community leaders, to come together and work with the land use committee from the community board to actually review it, go through it, make a lot of the suggestions that you're hearing tonight that they did speak on regarding healthcare, regarding the school, regarding the retail, regarding the height, the density. And we understood that whoever the developer is, they're developing it to make money. And so there's a trade-off that if we don't go high, we may lose this. If we go higher, we gain this. And we understood that. And we struggled as a committee because we understand that a lot of times Rockaway has always said, yes, you're going to do this for us. And then we end up being left out of the process once we gave them the yes. And so throughout this process, we have continued to ask EDC, and they have said that yes, we will be at the table. Yes, we will be at the table. So I'm standing here tonight just to say that I have to reiterate what Betty said. We need to at least be at the table. For people that live and shop and try to shop in 11691, every time something was said about the Thriftway Mall, every time we tried, from when Governor Pataki was in office, and we tried to do eminent domain, then the owner would pay a little bit of the taxes, and then eminent domain stopped, and then it would start all over again. And why can't we get anything? And why can't we get anything? And why can't we get anything? And now that we have the opportunity to get something, and that we're being asked to be at the table, I think we need to take this opportunity. Let's not forget that tonight, what we are voting on is the land use item. The fact that some rezoning needs to happen before anything else happens. So before anybody promises us a school, which is needed, healthcare, which is needed, retail space, which is needed. Before we can even get to that point, we have to say yes on the land use action. So I'm just cautioning, because about 40 people lined up, I think, to speak, if not more, to please understand tonight what the board has to vote on is the land use option, the rezoning to move this project forward in any manner. Before they can promise us the sun, the moon, and the stars, are we even going to vote to redevelop, rezone, and develop the property? That's what we're voting on tonight. We're not voting on whether we get the school or the hospital, but we're going to be at the table. That's what we asked for. That's what they've committed. But nothing can move forward until we vote on whether or not the rezoning is going to take place. So I'm so happy to see so many people out tonight, but we've been having these meetings for months and months and months and months and months. And a lot of what you're hearing are the very same things that the committee spoke about, because we said without these things, we were not willing to discuss moving forward. But tonight, the board is voting strictly on the land use item, the fact that we have to agree to it to being rezoned for development before we move forward. So I think I just want to make that clear before people started coming up and bombarding them about what are you going to give us. They're not going to give us anything unless we actually have land to do it. Thank you.
So Felicia, you must have been in my head, because before I went to public speaking, I wanted to review for everyone where we are. So we had an ad hoc committee which looked at if it was to be built, what were our needs, and what did we need to ask for to make it a great project. And that ad hoc committee included board members and members of the local civics in the 11691 area. Then it was passed off to the land use committee, who had to consider actions under ULURP in terms of zoning. And Brendan is here this evening if we get technical questions. He's from city planning and he knows Rockaway in and out. So if we have questions for him, he'll be able to help us. So the action tonight is, there's 6 numbers assigned to the ULURP, but it's really 3 actions. One is disposing of city-owned properties. That's 2 pieces of property. One is the municipal parking lot, which there's an RFP out for residential with retail on the ground floor. The second disposition is for the old sanitation lot. And what came out of the ad hoc committee was to make that a public park and children's playground. So that's one disposition. The next action is in regards to declaring an urban renewal area. So designating the black line on the map. What? The red line, sorry. The red line on the map, an urban renewal area. And then disposing of any of those properties that are city-owned at some point in the future to sell and develop. And then the third action is the zoning, which I think is the most impactful right now, because it's the zoning map amendment, which will declare a special district and the renewal area, and then the zoning text. And this is where the board has an opportunity to look at the concerns of density and height, where you can redefine, and Brendan's going to keep me honest here, you can redefine what an R6, what the height of an R6 is. Right now it's 85 feet. So there is a piece of property that will, if the plan is for it to be R6, but it's not in the current development. That's 10, 15, 20 years down the road. And we're all going to forget that that's an R6 and it can be 85 feet. And the R7, which now can go from 95 feet to 105 feet. So we have in this portion of the ULURP process to redefine the terms of those zonings, okay? So with that in mind, I'm just going to quickly list what came out of the 2 committees in terms of not the ULURP process, but in what were the community needs. And one was a project labor agreement, which we talked about prevailing wage already, maximum height of 8 stories, a zoned public elementary school within the special district, a children's playground and park, which would be at the sanitation location, a minimum residential parking of 75% of the units. Income mix, and this gets, I kind of like the mix here. Market rate would be 40%, affordable would be 60%. So of the 60% of the units that would be declared affordable, 20% of those units would be at a 30% AMI, 80% would be at 60% or higher AMI, sorry. We do not want just rental. It would be 60% rental and 40% ownership. And retail and commercial limited to the ground floor only, and that recommendation came so that we could provide from floor 2 up to be residential and not take any commercial space from the second floor, enabling us to perhaps lower the height. Community benefits agreement, a special committee composed of community board members and the community to monitor and collaborate in each phase of the project. So those are the highlights of the recommendations coming from the 2 committees. And so with that, we're going to go to public speaking, and it is 1 minute public speaking.
We ask you to go up to the microphone up there.
So I'm going to call the first 3 people so that you're in line. Okay, so it's Bruce Jacobs, Edward Raskin, and Elaine Shaw.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. I only got 1 minute, so I have to read off to you guys. The Coalition of Rockaways was totally against this plan. In neighborhoods of color, they're fast to put these big buildings. In other neighborhoods, they don't. They're promising the world. They made their case. We want businesses. But the story that I'm going to say, the Coalition of the Rock, thank you, City Limits, for coming. The Coalition of Rockaways, Bruce Jacobs, Stanwood, Kawana Houses. The Rockaway wants development with infrastructure. We want better transportation, a waste management plan. Schools, hospitals to be represented by the people from this neighborhood. Let me explain. This plan is not about affordable housing. This plan is for the greedy developers. In the future, they will leave the program. Corruption and bad representation. This plan, which is a done deal, should be investigated by the Department of Justice. Why is the city warehousing apartments and city housing and Mitchell-Lama buildings trying to go private? If they cared, we the people of Far Rockaway, you know, we would get 91 million is not enough because building alone costs more in
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Raskin.
Should I start? My name is Edward Raskin. I'm the immediate past president of the Bayswater Civic Association. I'm a zoning attorney. This same presentation was presented to us a few weeks ago at our board. We are opposed to it. Far Rockaway is a bedroom community. It is suburban, just like the 5 towns which we abut. We do not want to become a high-density residential area like downtown Brooklyn or Manhattan. We do need improvement in the business district. Something has to be done with that shopping center. The problem is not economic. The problem is that the prior owner, who is recently deceased, refused to do anything to improve her shopping center. And if the city can improve that, that's great. We need parking. We don't need to destroy parking in order to create high-rising housing with maybe some parking underneath. It's not a solution.
Thank you. Elaine Short.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Elaine Short. I'm the president of the Far Rockaway NAACP branch. And I'm speaking in favor of this project. I'm asking Community Board 14 to vote yes. And for the main reason that we are tired of this eyesore. Our downtown Far Rockaway look like a third world country with all the vacancy and the desolated land that's not being used. Why should we have to go outside of our community to shop and to have dinner? Why can't we have an area in which we have retails and businesses and Target or restaurants where we can sit down with our family and eat? So I ask for everyone for you to come out. It's not fair that we have to go to Nassau where we have to spend taxes. We can keep it right here in our community where we don't have to spend any taxes. We can have a cultural center here in our community. You talk about the tourists, the tourists, excuse me, but
Thank you. Thank you.
She just said she gave me her minute.
No, she can't do that. Thank you. Next three speakers, Joyce, Denise, Floral, Wallace, and Jacqueline McMichael. Joyce Dennis. Joyce Dennis, is she here? No? Okay. Floral, Wallace, and then Jacqueline McMichael. I guess you're the only one here? No, no. Good try. Go ahead.
Mike,
You have to go to the mic.
Thank you.
Okay, look, I dragged all these people here with me to sign so I can have 3 minutes instead of 1 minute. That's fine. That's okay.
Mike.
I am. Good evening, everyone. I've lived in Far Rockaway for 40 years. And shortly after I moved in, I'm going to talk straight. I'm going to get it all in 1 minute. Far Rockaway downtown became an eyesore with everything. We need to rebuild, and we cannot rebuild if we don't have the property to rebuild, to make this wonderful for our children and grandchildren to have. So I am urging the board to vote yes for us to be able to have a place to shop. I live in Far Rockaway. I want to shop in Far Rockaway. I don't want to go anywhere to shop. I can't drive anymore. I got to get somebody to drive me. So please vote for us, and that's my minute. And
Thank you.
Vote for us.
Thank you. Annette Evan, Bernice Williams, Deneen Ferguson, and Reverend Mullins.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Wallace Thomas, and I'm representing my boss in them, and plus.
Sir, what is your name?
Wallace Thomas.
Your name has not been called as of yet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is Annette? Where's Annette? Is Annette here? No? Okay, Bernice?
Hi, Bernice Williams, represent Bayswater Homeowners Association. When we purchased our homes going on 18 and a half years ago, when I read it and I purchased again in this area, it was so many different things promised. It's an eyesore. I'm all over the place. I'm in Suffolk County, I'm in Nassau County. I want to shop in my own neighborhood. So please vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Good evening, Deneen Ferguson. Sims had a commercial. An educated consumer is our best customer. I need our residents, I'm a resident, to be educated. One of the things that was said that was very important to me tonight, density is needed to make the project work for retail. We need to ask ourselves a question, do we as residents want more density? Is that what we want? I just ask that we also look at our transportation issues. We have problems now with transportation, adding 2,000-3,000 more people. The flood zone, we're not a flood zone right now, but we will be a flood zone based on these maps that are supposed to be coming out. Emergency preparedness, resiliency, how can we evacuate this peninsula going down 878 as it is? That's very important to me. And being at the table and not being able to eat is worse than having a famine. We all want change. What kind of change? Obama brought change. Trump is bringing change. What kind of change do we want in Rockaway? Thank you.
Thank you. Reverend Mullins? He left? Okay. All right, Erica Mora? Joanne Murray?
Longtime resident of the Far Rockaway area. I just want to say that this plan, which has been in place for working for 2 years, had to come to you guys for ULIP approval. We'd like you to do that because our folks, the ones that are hardly represented anywhere, that I'm very passionate about, need to have the change that we're asking for in Far Rockaway. So we're asking you to vote yes.
Thank you. Aisha Materi, Linda Bowman, Deborah Smith, Ashby. Any of those folks here? Aisha? No? Linda? Deborah? Thank you.
I'm Ms. Garland. I've been a resident of Far Rockaway for 50-something years. I'm a mother, I'm an adopted mother, and I'm a foster mom. And I live on a block where we can't get no help, and y'all want to tear up and build up. I'm flooded out every time it rains. Every time it rains, I've called everybody. I get bills from the sewer for $7,000, for $800, for $700, for $2,900. Y'all want to help? Y'all want to dig it up and fix it up? You can't fix anything if you're not doing anything. You're tearing it up, bringing it up, and hey, you're not doing anything for the kids. We need hospitals, we need beds, we need everything out here. We have nothing for our children. Y'all want to build? Build it. When you build it, where are you going to put all these people at? Tell me where you're going to put them at. What you going to do with the people that already live here? You're going to put them in a little box so when the next neighbors come in, where are you going to put them all? I live out here. My block is destroyed. I live on 13th Street. Come by there right now. I guarantee you see 7 houses with pumps out there waiting for the rain because we get flooded every time. And nobody wants to do nothing. And I will say this again. Do something. Not thank it.
Thank you. Norman Silverman, Joseph Groves, first initial T, last name Hum, Audrey Robinson. I'll get back to her. Norman Silverman. Norman.
Okay. The great poet Langston Hughes once wrote, "A dream deferred is a dream denied. Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun?" We have a dream deferred. For over 30 years, I worked with the All Rockaway Planning Council, the Public Advocates Citizen Action Team, and I now serve as Vice President of the Bayswater Civic Association. I also taught for over 20 years for 8th grade social studies students at IS 53. No one ever asked for 15-story buildings or 3,000 more families in our downtown business district. We asked for better and cleaner stores and streets, rental of vacant available stores in the shopping centers. Rita Stark refused to answer her phone. Parking for customers close to stores, and an end to towing of customers who go to stores on streets outside the shopping center.
Thank you.
We asked for better
Thank you.
transportation.
Thank you. Thank
We
you.
never got these things.
Thank
We
you.
urge a no vote
Thank
on
you.
this, on
Thank
this
you.
plan.
Joseph Groves,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Joseph Groves. I'm living in the Far Rockaway for over 43 years. We need this project. Whatever improvement needs to be done, there is open space or open things that can be done for adjustment. Let's go for it. Whatever is put together can be adjusted with a school, whatever things that are needed, the plan is open for adjustment. So let's go for it. Let's vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you. First initial T, is that T, and then Ham is the last name? What's your name? Okay, Ms. Robinson, go ahead. And then Deborah, you'll be next.
Good evening, I'm Audrey Robertson, Vice President of the Far Rockaway NAACP branch. And I'm also in support of the revitalization program. Far Rockaway is an eyesore. I don't even shop or even like driving through Far Rockaway. So we definitely need a change. So I'm in support of the change. And Community Board, please vote yes.
Thank you. Deborah Smith?
Deborah, Mike.
Sorry, I thought I could check loud. I have to tell people that don't know me, my family came here from Manhattan in 1910. My great-grandparents moved here to move into the country. I've seen everything. My family had hundreds of relatives here. They're all gone. I'm still here because I love the place. The issue is not a lack of housing. I know everyone in this room and everyone in the peninsula would like to see that blight removed. The blight occurred for many reasons, but it's not for lack of people wanting things better. It's the lack of jobs, poor transportation. Bringing people into an area that is already overwhelmed will not make it better for the people in the area. The dense population would lead to overcrowding, threaten quality of life, create competition for jobs, and affect education. The DEIS study found that open space would decline by 14%. To avoid it, we have to reduce the housing units by 99% from 3,027 to 28 DUs. Some years ago, after Hurricane Sandy, we had the New York Rising East. Their proposal is not being followed.
Thank you. Edna Glovman, Alice Dorsey, Joe Hirsch, and Travis Anderson are the next four speakers.
No, I have only 1 minute. I'm Amy Gladman, President of Bayswater Civic Association. I've heard 40, 30, but I'm here in my own house for 60 years. So I top you all. In any case, there have been many promises made to us, and I'm worried that there will be promises and we will not have a say in what is happening. I want to know what provisions for evacuation. I'm very nervous about that. It's very difficult now. With the density that we're expecting, the number of people, I don't know how we'll ever get off this peninsula. And also, what will the developers do for us? Is this for the developers or is this for us? Okay.
Thank you. Alice.
Grace and peace, everyone. I'm Alice Dorsey. I'm the Secretary of the Far Rockaway NAACP. I'm for this. So committee members, board members, vote yes. My pastor always teaches change is the only constant in life. We've needed changes here for 50 years. We haven't gotten it. This is our opportunity for change. Supply and demand. The demand is here. The suppliers are here. Vote yes.
Joe Hirsch.
I only lived here 52 years in a house about a block away from here.
I'm an active member for about 25 years of the Bayswater Civic Association Board. I retired, well, currently I am a real estate broker. I've worked in the last 30 years, about 300 families into Bayswater. I retired from 30 years in the IRS as an agent, as a supervisor, and as an appeals officer. The IRS, we had a saying that you hear from time to time. You may call a zebra a horse, it's still a zebra. You may call this revitalization, what have you, it's really housing. How much of that $93 million will come to us if we touch the housing aspect of this plan? A lot's going to be said about a lot of different things, but I and a lot of people I know urge you, please don't approve housing.
Thank you. Travis Anderson. And then it's going to be Ralph Lewis, Calvin Thompson, Valerie West.
Good evening. My name is Travis Anderson, and I'm a resident of Far Rockaway. I'm commenting on the disposition of city-owned property, Queens Block 15534, Lot 70, pursuant to ULURP number 170248-PPQ. I believe Queens Block 11534, Lot 70, located at 20-06 Manioc Street, should be kept by the city and should not be sold. To this effort, I ask that the site not be included in the downtown redevelopment plan, and I and other community members would like to see the space used for a community garden / compost learning center or some other green initiatives such as adventure playgrounds that would benefit the citizens of Far Rockaway. Thank you, and I also support the two actions of the designation of the urban renewal area and acquisition of urban renewal area properties. Thank you.
Person to speak on the order.
How you doing? I lived in Far Rockaway for 35 years.
Mr. Lewis, just for the record, so we know, Ralph Lewis? Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so I lived in Far Rockaway for 35 years. Just recently bought a house here, got 4 kids that I'm raising. I've seen the Thriftway community, the Thriftway area look like this for a long time. I used to shop there. I used to shop in the Thriftway area, so I definitely want to see something new coming to the Thriftway area. What I don't want to see is too many residentials, because the retail shopping, we can take care of that ourselves as a community and shop there as much as we need to bring it up. We don't need new residential housing in that area, because it's going to cause like the density that everybody's been talking about. And once we have an emergency in the Rockaways, we need a way out. There's a lot of traffic in the Rockaways as it is, just coming in. We need a way out in an event of an emergency.
Thank you. Mr. Thompson? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Calvin Thompson from 1916 Mott Avenue Platinum Plus Barbershop. I'm one of the 18 businesses that received partial money for development, and we thank those that were responsible for assisting us in that. Our business is looking very nice right now. What I want to ask a question: how many people in this room shop in downtown Far Rockaway? By show of hands. That is less than 5% of the people in this place. We need the business. I've been here for 27 years. I'm asking the board, please approve this so that the businesses can survive. We cannot invite other businesses to come in. Who's gonna come here? We started 27 years ago. And I've seen many of businesses come and go. Who is gonna come and invest hundreds of thousands of dollars in this if the people are not coming to downtown Far Rockaway? We need the housing for more people to come, but we also need, like the people say, the hospital. Thank you very much. Please vote yes.
Valerie West.
Good evening. My name is Valerie West. I'm a homeowner for 41 years, a community advocate and member of the Deerfield Civic Association. Deerfield members, please stand. On behalf of the Deerfield Civic Association, I'm testifying in favor of the downtown Far Rockaway plan and the ULUP action that must take place. Downtown Far Rockaway community deserves the right to have a bright, thriving downtown district that attracts new businesses, services, and families.
We further believe that the plan will create new economic development opportunities, construction, retail, and professional services. We have been waiting on this for over 41 years. My broker, when he bought me here 41 years ago, he said in 5 years you're going to have changes. And I'm still waiting. So I encourage the board to please vote yes for this plan. Thank you.
Thank you. The next three speakers, Kevin Alexander, Eugene, Melvin Haskins.
Oh my goodness, Eugene. Good evening. My name is Kevin Alexander, and I am the president of Rockaway Development and Revitalization Corporation, located in the heart of downtown Far Rockaway. RDRC is in support of the Downtown Far Rockaway Plan annular process that is connected with it. While RDRC does not view the plan as perfect, we acknowledge there must be further conversation on issues such as housing density and height, parking, and congestion. We recognize that the challenges of bringing new families, new and diverse businesses, new roadways, new infrastructure, new sidewalks, open spaces, and a new library will bring to downtown Far Rockaway, but we're asking that the Community Board 14 approve the land use action so we can continue to have a voice on what we want to see in downtown Far Rockaway. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm a newcomer. I've only lived here since 1950. My grandparents were here before World War II. Bayswater Civic Association Board asked for 10 minutes to do a presentation. You gave EDC an hour. They talk about unlocking the potential. What they really mean is locking up downtown. Their draft goals say reestablish downtown as a commercial and transportation hub. Reposition the area as a mixed-use district, including mixed-income housing. Activate the public realm with new connections and public open space. Improve the quality of life for residents through access to community services, education, and quality jobs. And build the capacity of community organizations and support local businesses. The only one of those goals that their plan meets is housing. They want to sell the DOT parking lot.
Thank you. Thank you.
I urge you,
Thank you.
I urge you
Thank you.
to vote no.
Thank you.
And
Thank
I
you.
urge you
Thank
to
you.
let people have a decent
Thank
opportunity to make a presentation.
Thank you.
I urge the board
Thank you.
to adjourn.
Thank you.
Adjourn and
Thank
have
you.
a real meeting.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Melvin. Mike. Security guard, and I am a member. Mike. I have to talk. Good evening. My name is Melvin. I'm a local security guard, and I am a member of the Service Employees International Union Local 32BJ. SEIU 32BJ is the largest property service union in the country, representing 80,000 members in New York City and hundreds of members that live and work in Far Rockaway. I'm testifying today to ensure that the Far Rockaway rezoning provides good jobs that will benefit our community in the years to come. To close, I want to say that we think the rezoning and investment in the area can be a very good thing for the downtown Far Rockaway. And we want to push to make sure that there are strong commitments to create good jobs. I urge the committee board to do what they can do to ensure there is a commitment to good jobs as part of the rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you. Glenn Collins, Eddie George, Renee Haskin Modis. Glenn Collins, yes, no? Okay. Eddie George.
Good evening. My name is Eddie George. I'm with NYC Community Alliance for Workers' Justice. I urge the board when developing this project that the developer that they hire What this community needs is good jobs, make sure that the people in this community have opportunities to pathway to apprenticeship and responsible development. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Renee Hastic-Moats. I am the Vice President for External Affairs with St. John's Episcopal Hospital. I stand here to say that the administration is in support of the project. We do understand the complexity of the project and what does that mean for the hospital. I know that I do have a minute, but if you would like more information on the expansion and the projects that we do have coming down the pipeline, I can be seen after the meeting. So we are in support of it, and we thank you, EDC, for meeting with us and talking with us about our developmental projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Vincent Jeffrey, and first name, but its last name is Thomas. I think that was the gentleman that came up before. Is it Wallace Thomas? Wallace Thomas and Vincent Jeffrey. You're Vincent Jeffrey? Okay.
My name is Vincent Jeffrey. And I am a resident of Far Rockaway. I believe Queen Block 15534, Lot 70, located at 2006 Namyok Street, should be kept by the city and not sold to this effort. I ask that the downtown redevelopment plan, and I said the community members would like to see the space used for community practice and compost. Some of the green initiatives that would benefit the citizens of downtown Far Rockaway. Thank you.
Thank you. And then the last speakers, Barack Wogley and Sheila Shane. Yes. Okay.
Good evening, Barack Robel from the firm of Holland & Knight. Simply here to observe the proceedings on behalf of the estate of Rita Stark. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. And that concludes our public speaking portion. Yes. So just, Al's going to give the report, but there were two gentlemen who actually spoke to an action item in the ULUP, and it was the sanitation location, which our hope was that it would become a playground and a park, but they're asking that property not be sold.
Good evening again. The Land Use Committee did not have a quorum, so we don't have a motion, but we do have a recommendation. One of the things that we were concerned with was that yes would be all the city heard if we said yes, without hearing the other thing. So yes is the last thing I'm going to say. We needed the city to hear us on a project labor agreement. We needed to have maximum height of 8 stories within the special district. reduction of to 1,100 units, a zone public school within the special district, elementary schools, excuse me. Children's playground and park with bathrooms within the special district. Minimum residential parking at 75% of the units that would be built. Income mix, market rate, 40%, affordable, 60%. 20% at 30% AMI, 80% at 60% or higher AMI. Ownership was one of the things that we were concerned about. We wanted 40% ownership, 60% rental. Retail and commercial limited to ground floor only. Most important, community benefits agreement. There was a need for a wider turn, a wider corner for the bus to make the turn at Mott and Beach 20th. The sewer and water infrastructure needed to be upgraded in areas outside the two planned development sites. Ensure rezoning is of a lower density. R6 was proposed at Central and Foam. We felt that it should be R5. The committee, a special committee composed of community board and residents to monitor and collaborate each phase. This is something that EDC had said they would not have a problem with. Community space set aside for healthcare and daycare. There's still a need, even with all of this, for a municipal parking lot. That was the recommendation from the committee. The motion will come from the board.
Let me just item 12, which is the R6 zone, which is currently proposed for Central and Foam, should have a lower density. Your the members that were there were recommending changing it to an R5. So Brendan we consulted, and an R5 would be 40 feet, which would be 4 stories. Would be the maximum height on that, versus the R6, which today would be 85 feet, which would be 8 stories, correct?
Special district,
Good evening, everyone. Once again, my name is Brendan Flower from the Department of City Planning. It's a real thrill for me to sit up with the community board members. This is my first time at the table in over 10 years, coming out to the community board. At the big boy table. It's a great place to be. So yeah, I just wanted to touch base real quickly on some of the zoning controls that were discussed. So the R5 district is what we call a low-density residential district that generally allows buildings a maximum height of 40 feet or 4 stories. That's a district that you see commonly within downtown Far Rockaway today, particularly at the edges of the rezoning area. As Rebecca said, it's a district that has not been updated since 1961. The area around Central and Foam Avenue is not R5 today, it's C4 district. So what the proposed zoning would do for most of the rezoning area is establish a R6 district and set special height limits for that R6 district. So at the periphery of the rezoning area in that proposed R6, the maximum height limit would be 95 feet or 9 stories. Along in the core of the downtown area where R6 is proposed near the A train station, and along Central Avenue, the maximum height is actually 110 feet or 10 stories. So there's two different height limits depending on where the R6 district is proposed in the rezoning area. The shopping center is a different zoning district. It's R7. That has its own special height limits. The maximum height limit within that district is 125 feet, and up to 2 buildings would be allowed to be 15 stories. So that's the full scope of maximum building heights that are proposed under the current zoning text.
In the zoning text amendment under ULIP 170244 to define what we want the R6 maximum height to be and the R7 maximum height. And basically 10 feet is a floor. So if something was 90 feet, it would be ground floor plus 8 stories or ground floor plus 9 stories.
So I say 85 feet, 95 feet, 105 feet, 125 feet, because we assume that the ground floor, because it's generally going to be a commercial or community facility use, those generally have higher floor-to-ceiling heights. So we estimate that that's about 15 feet, and then the residential stories above it would be about 10 feet each. So that's where we get 9 stories and 95 feet in that case.
Does anyone have any question or need clarification on that point? On that point only, go ahead. Joel?
The 15-story, that's an exception to the R7 generally, and we made an exception in this particular case.
That's correct. So there is, in the special district, a map which regulates where those 15-story buildings could be located. It's kind of an oddly shaped polygon because, as Rebecca said, what the zoning text really tries to do is focus the tallest buildings in the center of the very large shopping center site and step height down pretty dramatically as it gets closer to the lower density edge along Redfern, Mott, and Namio.
So technically, we want to limit the height of the buildings in the shopping center area. We approve an R7, but not an exception for 2 buildings.
The way the text is written is there is a kind of underlining maximum building height, and then there's an exception for 2 15-story buildings. So that's 2 separate sections of text. So if that was a condition, we could include. That's how it's handled in the text. So it's up to the community board to decide how they want to say it. Right. Sure. So just to repeat that. So the way the text is written is that the 15-story buildings are kind of a special exemption in the text. So if the community board wanted to adjust the location of those 15-story buildings or the fact that there are 15-story buildings at all, that would be the place to do it. Brooklyn has much taller.
Repeat again what the normal R7 height would be and what this text is suggesting.
Normal R7 height is so the normal R7 height is 105 feet, 10 stories. So what the text does today is it adds an underlining base height of 12 stories throughout the entire R7 district, and then there's a special exception for 2 15-story buildings.
Well, we would have to remove the exemption, but also the text for the R7. To keep it at 10 stories, we would have to remove all reference to a change in the R7. It would leave it at 10 stories then. Yeah. Would that be correct? Okay. Joel, on that point, we're only talking on this point. Okay, Joel, go ahead. It would depend on the size of the apartment, how many are studio, how many are one bedroom, how many are two bedroom. And not all the buildings are 10 stories. They want lower on the outskirts. Right. Well, but there's only, the R7 is only where the two 15 stories are. Right. So we don't allow an exemption to the R7 rule, which is 10 stories. Noreen?
So across all our 6 districts, regardless of what I said, the maximum height limits, the maximum FAR for residential uses is 3.6. In R7-1, the maximum FAR is 4.6.
In other words, if we go positive on the story max, would it actually be R7? It's R7? Well, it is R7. Well, no, it's not whatever it is. Is it R7? Is it R6? What area are you talking about? No, our recommendation was maximum in the story. How would we get that into the zoning? Why is that asking for a recommendation? By asking for a certain zoning district, whether it's R7. I understand that's not necessary. How would we do that? Can't be done. I think we do that with R7. All right? That's it. Must be this one. Well, because our greatest concern is the R7, which is. I understand. We said heavens, so that everything should be R7. And they stories. Maximum. That was the recommendation.
So you're asking to lump everything into one thing, and we can't do that. We have to take each zoning separately. So the question is the R7, which is normally 10 stories, right? It is being suggested that we put a restriction of R7 not to exceed 85 feet to allow for the commercial. Okay.
Like in terms of both zoning district and
Okay.
maximum. You just remove the R7.
And make it an R6.
Maximum of R6.
Which is 85 feet, correct? 85 feet, right. Right, but what is being suggested is to eliminate R7, which would allow the 15-story buildings, and to change the R7 to an R6, which would give us a max of 85 feet, which is 8 stories.
There's 2 R6 zones essentially. One with the maximum height limit of 95 feet, one with the maximum height limit of 105 feet.
So it's 95 feet.
Another aspect of the special district is that it sets a. So while there are maximum height limits that are higher than what zoning would allow today, there are also lower street wall heights. One of the things that the special district text want to accomplish is to be able to blend new development into the existing kind of mid-rise fabric that is in downtown Far Rockaway today. So there's a consistent, throughout most of the rezoning area, 55 foot street wall height limit before a setback would be required before rising up to the maximum building height. So across the R6 areas, there is a maximum street wall height uniformly of 55 feet. The shopping center site has special height controls so that there are kind of 4-story height limits along Redfern, 6-story height limits around.
And we would limit that to 2. We would limit it to 2 because we would have 2 15-story. So we'd have 2 9-story, and every other building would be less than 9-story.
Question?
Yes.
So 9 stories. So does that include the footage of the retail space?
So it would be 95 feet with 15 feet for the retail space. And then,
Let's go with the.
and then 8 residential floors above.
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry. In the form, there was 215 for consideration. I thought that most of the retail was on the periphery of the, are you saying that they're, not that they.
I don't know that the building's been designed, and they've talked mostly about will there be retail in every building? Is that the plan?
So there,
The special district requires active ground floor uses on certain commercial corridors. So we're not requiring it in all buildings, but in certain commercial corridors it would be required. Sorry.
the 2 proposed 15-story buildings, are they on the corridor
They-
that will require?
Right, no, those would not be required.
Okay. Right, it's still 9 stories. Yes, it's still 9 stories. All right. Joel?
I have a concern when I saw the recommendation, and that is nothing commercial above the first floor. Now, I understand it's to give more residential. On the other hand, it takes away from the possibility of offices. I think it's something that we should very much consider, and which would make life entries up jobs for people. I think it's a mistake to take away the second floor. Also, you have retail, mid-box, and they want to have a double height ceiling, and you're not, you're going to prevent them from coming in just for that restriction.
So that was kind of the idea for having second-story retail allowed on certain commercial corridors. We're thinking Beach 20th Street and Mott Avenue, where you already see second-story commercial, mainly professional office space. The idea is that that could be accommodated in new development where it wouldn't be allowed under the underlying zoning as proposed. So if a new development, like the one that was depicted along Mott Avenue on the shopping center site, without the special district text, that's really the text that allows for the second-story retail. Without that text, commercial would be limited to the ground floor. The special district along Mott Avenue for certain portions and along Beach 20th Street, where we do see a character of second-story retail, that would be allowed to be incorporated into new development. So you can get 2 floors of commercial with residences above. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify where that came from.
So if the thinking was to ensure additional residential uses, but now it gives us a restrictive retail, so we can easily pull that out if the board is comfortable with that. Colleen, yes, go ahead. No, we would get rid of the R7, is what it seems to be going. Get rid of the hard R7 for an R6 that would give us 95 feet maximum, which would be 9 stories. Well, not commercial space, residential. The ground floor would always be commercial.
And we want to reduce density, so we reduce height.
Right, you have to sacrifice one for the other. Steve.
We have a guarantee of the housing coming in, but we need to see you guys be proactive in getting that commercial in there. It goes hand in hand with schools and everything else that there hasn't been really made attention to. Because the people that come in and move in, I have to feel that they will have a good quality of life. And if they have it stored, there's jobs and it provides the income. But unless you push and give incentives to these stores to come in and feel they can't make the money, it's damaging to the people that come in. So if we vote yes to this, and now I have to vote yes because otherwise we have no say, I'd like to say that we want to be able to push you guys and you be proactive in getting those stores to come in. Because these people deserve not to be warehouse somewhere, but to be in the neighborhood that has the diversity as far as quality of life.
Well said, sir.
Thank you. Jose.
So I just have a question, and I know I'm going to get hurt for this, but Brendan, did you say that the R6 also allows for a height of 105?
Yes, so there's two height limits. Can you take them? Thank you. You're not making us think here.
We got a big audience online. There's a large audience. Thank you.
Sorry, so once again, there's a R6 district proposed for the vast majority of the downtown Far Rockaway rezoning area. On the edges of that rezoning area where R6 is proposed, there's a maximum height limit proposed of 95 feet. As the R6 gets closer to what we're calling the core of downtown Far Rockaway, closer to the A train station, along Beach 20th Street, along Central Avenue, that maximum height limit increases to 105 feet.
So I know that as a member of the ad hoc committee, I was one of the people who also proposed that we go only up 8 stories, but I would like to revisit that instead of going to 9, to go to 10, because I think the city may do whatever they want. I'd rather meet them halfway than nowhere. And I think 8 stories might be a hard sell. I think 10 stories might be a little bit more palatable to the city, and I think it'll be better for us as a community.
So then that would be 105 feet. That would be 105 feet to allow for commercial on the ground floor, Sophie.
Yes, that's what I'm suggesting.
Chris?
Can I ask you guys, what's the difference in density if we're, as we take off storage of these 2 buildings? How much are we talking about?
It's really too early. It's hard for us to tell without analyzing it, and that's what we were getting at when someone had asked about the unit count. Without actually doing the analysis, it's not as easy as just like cutting off the top and then, having an estimate of how many units are per floor, because it depends on the size of the
There's no way to determine the number of units at this point. Yes. Okay, Betty? Well, the 10-story would give the better opportunity for commercial to extend to the second floor and still maximize the number of residential units to satisfy both the city and the retailers for a population to shop in their stores. That's the, an R6 with the maximum height of 105. Okay. Fully. No. We can amend it. We're not going to do 6 votes. We're going to do 1 vote amending whatever we feel we need to amend. So, Jose, you're done.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, Felicia.
At this point, I'm hoping all questions have been answered, because I think we need to move. I would like to make a motion at this time, and I would actually like to make a motion to support the ULURP items with the conditions that we just discussed, including the fact that the committee report will be amended, but that we're asking for the R6, the R7 to be removed, and in place to have the R6 with the max height of the 105, with the opportunity to have commercial expand to the second floor. We were talking about office space. Okay, so that is my motion at this time.
So the motion is to approve the 6 ULURP items with 1 change, and that's to ULURP 170243 and 170244, which would eliminate R7 zoning and allow R6 with the maximum height of 105 feet.
There was another zone change that the adjacent areas outside the urban renewal area be reduced to an R5.
So any R6 currently is stated in the ULURP in the outlying areas be reduced to be changed to an R5, which has a maximum height of 40 feet. Yep. Okay, so I'm not done with what the motion is. Okay. All right, so that's the motion so that would be a yes with the following conditions, right? So those are the changes to the ULURP. And Felicia, you're going with the conditions that the committee stated. All right, so the changes to the ULURP, removing the R7 and replacing it with an R6 with the maximum height of 105 feet, and the outlying R6 zones be changed to an R5, which has a maximum height of 40 feet. In addition to that, we would require a project labor agreement, require a zoned elementary public school, require a children's playground with a park and bathrooms, minimum residential parking of 75% of the units, an income mix, 40% being market rate, 60% being affordable. Within the of 60% affordable, 20% of those units would be at 30% AMI, 80% of the units would be at 60% or higher AMI, 40% of the units would be ownership, and 60% would be rental. A community benefits agreement, widening of Mott Avenue and 21st Street to accommodate turns of buses, sewer and water infrastructure upgrades to accommodate new development. Special committee composed of community board members and residents to monitor and collaborate each phase of the project development. And community space set aside for healthcare and daycare. And that is the motion. Gary? We're having discussion on the motion. That parcel that they're talking about, and I do thank them for actually recognizing the ULA process and actually stating that. That is where the committee is recommending that there be a playground park with bathroom facilities. Okay. Please. So that's going to be a park and a children's playground. Right. I understand what you're trying to get at, but it's such a broad, unless you have a site in mind, I'll come back to you. I have a couple of people on the list, I'll come back to you. Okay, yeah, take a minute. Karen? Oh, there you are.
So I think that we looked at all of the parking requirements and the needs in this area, and we're trying to accommodate them within the zoning. So I think right now it's a little too early for us to say sort of a yes or a no to that, but we are trying to revitalize the area so that there is sort of that pedestrian-friendly, area for people to shop, and we want to make sure that folks that want to drive in the area can be accommodated for as they go to shop in these stores. So it's something that we can continue to have conversations about, but not something that we can promise today.
I will tell you that during the process, one of the agency people might not be the only that I feel. An agency that once I say this was directed to Broadway. That you have a great idea. And actually walk Plain Street with an entryway to the back where there's a big open space that would bring you into the parking lot. And I informed them that 20 years ago it wasn't used as a parking lot. And the city sold it. So the city would like to buy it back from the owner and remake it a municipal parking lot. That'd be wonderful. So there is actually an opportunity to do that.
So we're going to add that because the report, there is a comment on page 2 in the report, but it didn't have a number next to it, so I didn't realize that it was one of the conditions. So on page 2, it's not numbered, but it says need for a municipal parking lot. We'll add that to the motion. John? Oh, please, wait, go ahead. You found. So you're saying in the RFP for the Beach 21st Street project, you would like to see a community garden?
So as Eleni mentioned, that RFP has gone out and the responses have come in, but that's something we can certainly take into consideration.
because it wasn't part of the RFP previously. Sure. As community garden.
John, to you now. The prevailing wage. What is the difference between prevailing wage and New York City construction rate?
You want to say the word New York City?
New York City prevailing construction rate, okay. Wage, okay. Sonia? Uh-huh. That would be what municipal lot usually has a combination of short-term parking and long-term parking. Okay, let's not go off topic, please, Jonathan. Thank you. All right, anything else on the motion? Anything else on the motion? No? Then we're going to call the motion. And we're going to start with you, Felicia, since you made the motion. You vote yes. Joel Kaplan? Yes. Peter Larkin's not here. Betty Leon? Thank you. Tom Long? Yes. John McCambridge is not here. Desiree? Not here. Sonia? Okay, Hank is not here. Marty's not here. Brian? Pat Gillespie is not here. Noreen Ellis? Ozzy? Mordecai? He left. Jerry? John Corey? Steve? Annette, not here. Lou's not here. Kelly's not here. Ed Benson's not here. Shalom? Left. Colleen? Al? Ellen? Isaac? Eugene? Eddie Pasteur? Karen? Harvey? Danny? Senda? Ellie? Milan? Chris? Tom Tobin? Carol? Jose? Edwin Williams? Rachel? And I vote yes. Motion carries. All right, everyone have a great evening. See you next month.
Continuously or what?
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for yeah, man. I just try.
we got a large audience, so I want to, I understand
Is it
it.
city
Don't
limits?
want to be disruptive here, but we got a whole audience, and they're like, you know what I mean? So I appreciate that.
Yo,
Thanks a lot,
I was
guys.
getting texted.
City limits, yes.
If I can see
You
this-
said your city limits will be right on it.
Oh, it'll be on it, okay.
Oh, you said you were getting
Yeah, what
texts?
happened was I had a lot of people hitting me up. I can't hear right now. I said,
It's great that people are, interested in watching.
Are we going to be doing this from now on? Just
We're trying to do more of it, We're trying to do more live streaming of rezoning hearings and other kind of events. Name's Mark.
That's Isaac.
Good to meet you, Isaac. All right, have a good one. What's that? I'd have to check. This looks like that's not real time. So I'd have to log back in. You had people texting, so they obviously tune in. That's great.
That's what it gets in. I was getting, I can't hear me. So it was good.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. Because originally people are like, we don't hear you. And I'm like, but my camera's plugged into the. You see what I'm saying?
They're not used to it.
I understand, and I know. And I'm trying to delicately say,
Once I got the
yeah, that was great.
I said, no, this is important. This is a better way for more people to get involved.
No doubt, no doubt. A lot of people can't make it. But, it was a great facility for people here. It was a packed room, but a lot of people can't make it. So, thanks again, Isaac. Thanks again.